if you're always around somebody who's saying, let me handle that for you, we say always helping kids isn't always helping them. And so given they had to go into a store and talk to a stranger. They defined it as that, a store full of strangers. Well, it's a store full of people. I guess they're strangers, but they're just people. They're not criminals. And they just felt so much better about themselves and better about the world.
Hello and welcome to the Sunshine Parenting Podcast, where each week we talk about ideas for raising kids who become thriving adults. I'm your host, Audrey Monkey. Here on the podcast, I share my experiences raising 5 kids who currently range in age from 16 to 26 and working with thousands more as a summer camp director over the past 3 decades. I'm the author of Happy Campers, and I frequently do workshops with parents, teachers, and summer camp professionals about social skills, connection, and happiness, topics I researched extensively for my master's in psychology. If you want tools for raising kind, optimistic, self-reliant kids who become thriving adults, you've come to the right place. Hey, Sunshine Parenting listeners. I'm thrilled to bring you this week's conversation with one of my heroes, Lenore Skenazy. She's the author of the 2009 book, Free Range Kids, and co-founder and president of letgrow.org. Lenore is best known for her nickname, America's Worst Mom, which she got after writing her column in 2008 for the New York Sun called Why I Let My 9-Year-Old Ride the Subway Alone. Her article landed her on every talk show from The Today Show to Dr. Phil, and eventually led to her book, Free Range Kids, and her blog by the same name. Lenore is credited with launching the anti-helicopter parenting movement. After 10 years of watching parents nod along as Lenore described how our culture has force-fed them fear, her aim now at Let Grow is to turn agreement into action, making it easy and normal to give kids the same kind of freedom most of us had and loved. Back in 2009, when I read Free Range Kids, it was an eye-opening and really impactful book for me. And I currently am a huge fan of all the resources that Let Grow is sharing with parents and educators. So I'm thrilled to welcome Lenore Skenazy to the Sunshine Parenting Podcast today. Welcome to the podcast, Lenore. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Audrey. Happy to be here.
So, Lenore, I have been a fan for a long, long time. And so this is quite an honor to have you on the podcast today. Can you start with telling first about your book, Free Range Kids? How long ago was it that you wrote that?
Oh, the origin story about letting my 9-year-old ride the subway alone and writing a column about that. The 9-year-old is 21, so you can do the math.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. So he is an adult now, and I bet now he's really good at lots more things besides riding subways.
Yeah. Although I have 2 kids. It's an N of 2. It's a subset of 2. You can't really judge by anything, but yes, both my sons are doing fine. Thank God. I'm going to knock on hear all that wood, because I don't always think it's up to us. There's so many factors that go into who a kid becomes.
I know. Well, I loved that story, and I think it's okay because many people who listen maybe haven't heard it, but I'll just give the quick summary and you can tell me if I'm correct. You wrote an article you were writing. I'm not sure what venue were you writing for at the time?
Oh, I had lost my job at the New York Daily News, which I'd had for 14 wonderful years. And I was working for, as it turned out, just a very fun paper to work at, the New York Sun.
Okay, so the New York Sun, and you wrote an article about letting your 9-year-old ride the subway. And I don't know if you titled it or if someone else called you the worst mother in America.
I made the title, Why I Let My 9-Year-Old Ride the Subway Alone. And 2 days after it ran, I was on the Today Show, MSNBC, Fox News, and NPR, defending myself, defending the idea of letting a kid do something by himself, especially in the New York City subway. And then I got the nickname America's Worst Mom.
Which, of course, now I look to you as a hero because you were kind of at the forefront. It was when this kind of crazy over-parenting was really coming into play. And so then you ended up writing a terrific book that a lot of people really enjoyed, including myself, called Free Range Kids. Mm-hmm. And what I really love about it is you're basically shared a lot of really important information about why parents have gotten so fearful and crazy. So can you share a little bit about what you found when you delved into this whole thing about why people are feeling so much more scared for their kids, even though there's no really reason to?
Right. Thanks for letting me talk about this, because the first thing I learned is that it's not like parents are crazy. It's that we are being fed so much fear from so many corners of our life and culture that it's almost impossible not to breathe it in. It's like pollution, you're just breathing it in, and it gets into your body. And what I discovered, because I'm a reporter to begin with, I did my research, is that there were 4 reasons, although now I think there's 5, that we are so much more afraid than our parents were. Because a lot of us, I'd say if you're at least 32 or 33, you had a free range childhood. You got to, go outside after school, and you could play with your friends, and not everything was a structured, supervised activity. You might have even had a bike. You might have ridden it someplace. You might not have had a helmet. I love helmets, for the record. But anyway, so I'll take us through what I think are the 4 or 5 reasons that we're so much more afraid, and why it feels so much less safe, even though statistically the crime rate is lower now than it has been in 25 years. So we're on a 25-year crime low, but it sure doesn't feel that way, and I understand it. And one of the reasons it doesn't is because of reason 1, the media. The media, have only been multiplying and then exponentially since we got the internet, from regular old TV to cable TV to the internet to your phone. And with all this competition for your attention, the story that keeps you glued the most, keeps most of us glued the most, is that of a kidnapping of a child. I mean, it's just the worst possible story. That's why Law and Order, every night there's a kidnapping of a child. And that you keep hearing about it, and your brain works like Google. It takes all this information in. And then when you ask, is it safe for my kid to walk to the bus stop today? And up pops the pictures that you've heard about, whether it was from a 30-year ago crime or a Law and Order episode yesterday of a kid being snatched here and there from the bus stop. And those stories are so easy to recall. You think that the easiest results to bring up in your brain, like on Google, they are the most relevant. But in your brain, they're not. In your brain, they're just the most horrifying stories that are therefore the closest to the surface when you ask, is my kid safe? And so we start making our decisions based not on any kind of statistical reality, not on any kind of reality at all, but only on the basis of all these terrible stories that have been shoved into us as we've been growing up. And a lot of us even grew up in the 80s when there were the kids on the milk cartons that, remember those pictures?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. That's when I was growing up, too.
Right. I'm actually
during I was free ranging all over the place. And it was, yes, during that era.
Right. But there's those pictures, and they all said, have you seen me? And it didn't matter if you were living in, Seattle or Tampa, you would see the same kids, because there aren't that many kids, thank God. Let me change that again. And it didn't matter where you were in the country, you were always seeing some kid. And what the picture didn't tell you is that the vast majority of them were runaways, or in the middle of some custodial dispute among divorced parents. So it wasn't that they were kidnapped, but it felt that way. And so that infects you at a young age, and then you become a parent now, and you're scared. So the media is certainly an enormous reason that we are so much more afraid than our parents, who weren't as saturated with these fears as we were. Shall I whip us through the other 3?
Sure. Yeah. No, I mean, I'm as long as you have time, I'm happy to listen, and I love them.
Okay. Yeah. What's not to love? We live in a litigious society. When you start thinking like a lawyer, which we all do, nothing seems safe enough, because could a kid get hurt that way? You have to sign a waiver. We had to sign waivers for our kids in elementary school when they were going on a field trip to the park across the street, literally the playground across the street. I mean, so you take something that is extremely safe, and it is rewritten through the lawyer brain as dangerous, as potentially dangerous. And everything starts you see everything through the lens of risk, and nothing seems safe enough. So there are schools that are getting rid of their swings because a kid could fall off. I was at one school where they told me, this was in Massachusetts, during the day, the kids are allowed to swing on the swings because of one insurance policy. And in the after school program, they're like there's caution tape around, they're not allowed to touch the swing set because of a different insurance policy. And that's the same swing set and the swings are pretty safe. And so you just get used to the idea of somebody's done some risk analysis and a 0.0002 risk is still too risky to do, because you never want to be in court and you're imagining the judge saying, well, you knew. There was a case in New Jersey a couple months ago. A kid had fallen off a slide and the parents and broke her arm. Nothing that terrible. I mean, you don't want to break your arm, but it was not death or dismemberment. And the parents got a settlement of $170,000 because the prosecutor argued that the swing was at a 35-degree angle and it should have only been at a 30-degree angle. When you have to start thinking like that, it really changes. It just like sucks all your common sense away, and you have to start thinking like, a trial lawyer. And I think that is making us more cautious than we need to be, because that's how you think if you're a lawyer. So the third reason I think we're more afraid is that we live in an expert culture. And gosh, normally I have my magazine. This is just a total mess at my desk here. But, magazines have experts. The experts are there to tell you you're doing something wrong. And so it's like, why you should never eat this food, why you should never, serve your kid from this kind of cup. Don't put anything in the microwave. Don't eat anything that isn't organic. Don't let your kid go outside when the sun is too bright, but don't let them not get sun, because then they'll get rickets, but then they'll get cancer. Everything becomes a cautionary tale if somebody's livelihood or if you're not going to pick up a magazine that says everything's fine, don't worry, right?
Right. And it just creates this anxiety too, where then parents are just worried about everything.
Yeah, that's why I don't blame the parents.
Yes. Oh, and yes, you're so true. I what really hit me, and I remember the book from even a decade ago when I read it. I just remember reading about the difference of what our parents watched on TV versus what we watched.
Yeah.
And like how, it was like, I don't know, the Brady Bunch and these funny, whatever, late night comedy. And then it became the Dateline stories and America's Most Wanted and the Law and Order. And it's like, you're right. When you fill your head with what you kind of take in, you start believing that that's the norm, not the exception. And, it's funny because I run a children's summer camp, which if you want to talk about a high risk kind of thing, people perceive camp, or especially letting your child go to camp, as being so risky and dangerous. And what's amazing is that statistically, summer camps are far safer than people's backyards.
Wow, truly? That's so interesting.
Yes.
Why?
So the American Camp Association has first of all, when you're doing, for example, like a ropes course or water sports at a camp, the staff are all trained. There's supervision ratios. There's a procedure being followed. There's an orientation being done. So like when you can compare like a family going out boating, like on a motorized boat, the parent driving the boat doesn't necessarily have much experience driving a boat. They might be renting the boat. They might not really. So, but it's just that thing that I think parents feel like when someone's not under their exact, like very close supervision, there's this fear. And so that's one of the things. And I struggle with that as a parent too. You really want to trust other people with your kids, but there is a risk of doing anything in life, right? Just stepping out your front door. Yes, there's some risk to that. So a lot of people, I think, are just keeping their kids inside, which now we're finding that there's a lot of risks to that as well.
There are, sometimes people say, why would you let your kid play outside? I'm like, why would you let your kid walk down the stairs? There is risk. Why would you drive your kid someplace? The number one way kids die is as car passengers. And it seems like we understand intuitively that, like, okay, there's some risk driving a kid someplace, but it's not so great that I'd be, if I didn't drive them someplace because I was worried about cars all the time, there'd be something wrong with me. But we don't think the same thing about letting them go outside, even though, in both instances, it's pretty darn safe,
Well,
and nothing is perfectly safe.
yeah. So I think you had one more. So share your other point, and then I want to ask you some more questions about what you're sharing with parents.
Okay, sure. So and I think I'll sort of mash together the reasons 4 and the new reason 5. Reason 4 that we're so much more afraid than our parents is that we live in a marketplace, which is fine. But the easiest dollar to get from any human being is the dollar from a parent who is afraid that something bad will happen to their kid, and you have a way of preventing it. And so I think as we've become a more affluent nation, and a lot of times there's 2 parents working, so you have 2 incomes all going towards keeping the child safe. There's just been this enormous growth in safety products. There are baby knee pads. There are baby helmets to wear when they're learning how to walk so they don't hit their heads. There are, God, what are there? There's these little mashy, like little mesh things that you can put a strawberry in. So when your child is eating a strawberry as a baby, they don't choke because the food has to get through the mesh. So it's almost like you can look at anything that a child does, from sleeping in a crib, you have to have a monitor, to walking where there are devices to hold the child up as they learn how to walk. And the device isn't your arms. The device is a little vest that you put around a kid that has strings. And so you can hold the child up like a marionette, as if the child falling as they toddle is so dangerous that it should be avoided at all costs. And really what we're doing is rewriting childhood as a series of untenable risks, from walking to bumping to choking to hurting, and saying that you should be there with this new product, making sure that nothing happens. And then the 5th reason that sort of leads into that is, now that we have technology, we have the ability to protect them on every front, every which way, watching their every move. You can tell their fever. You can be on a business trip, 3 states away, and you can tell what your child's temperature is from some of the technology. When your baby is asleep in their crib, you can tell their blood oxygen level as if you're the night nurse in ICU. Even if your kid is fine, you can read all their text. You can see where they're walking. You can see who they're talking to. You can you get their grades instantly if you want. And it gives us this level of omniscience that is actually very oppressive to parents, because it feels like you have to know literally every breath your kid is taking, because if you don't know it, well, did they take their last breath, and are they still okay? It's driving us crazy with the idea that we have to be watching over them like the headmaster and the head nurse and the head surgeon and an epidemiologist and the NICU lady, as if our child is in such danger that we better be on high alert all the time, or something terrible will happen and it's all our fault. That's why I feel sorry for parents raising kids in this era. The pressure to know everything, beware of everything, and worry about everything is at a breaking point.
Definitely. And I think it's actually even gotten worse than what you were talking about back 12 or 13 years ago when you first wrote Free Range Kids. One of the the American Camp Association I mentioned before, they're doing some research on the outcomes of camp experiences and, how it benefits kids in their future, or helping them adjust to adult life and that kind of thing. And one of the interesting things they found that was unexpected is that camp experiences are positive for the parents as well, because because it's pretty much for parents, it's the first time they've ever experienced the break from feeling like they needed to. So like if their kids don't have their phones with them at camp, which most camps don't have kids with phones, the parent gets a break from all that monitoring. And
so great.
So yes. So it's a really interesting thing that they didn't even think that was what they were looking for, but it was a finding that your kid's away at camp and you as a parent can take a deep breath, relax, get a break, and perhaps realize that, oh my goodness, my child was okay for a couple weeks and I wasn't doing all that micromanaging. Hey, they actually look pretty happy and like they've had a good experience and have grown a little. Maybe I can, let them out a bit more. So Lenore, your most recent endeavor, and I don't know how long ago this started, that I absolutely think is such a fantastic resource, and I am sharing with everyone I can,
Oh, wow.
is your new website, Let Grow. So this sort of is like your next thing. How long ago did you start it? And tell a little bit about, why you started this.
Okay, I think it really dovetails with the idea of camp. So Let Grow, I started 2 years ago. It's a nonprofit that I began with a guy named Jonathan Haidt, who wrote The Coddling of the American Mind, and Peter Gray, who believes that kids learn most when they play, and Daniel Schuckman, who used to be head of FIRE, which fights for free speech on campus. And Jonathan Haidt in particular was worried that kids seem to be arriving on college campuses fragile, easily hurt, anxiety spiking, depression spiking, and not ready for adulthood. And he realized that it's probably not just starting when they're 18. What is going on in the younger years that is almost stealing their resourcefulness from them and their natural curiosity and exuberance and resilience. And he and the other part of the team thought it must be a result of this culture of overprotection. And once again, remember, I don't say it's the helicopter parents, it's an entire culture devoted to overprotecting. And so they said, who's fighting that? They came to me, I'm the one. And I'm certainly not the only one. A lot of people are sounding the alarm bells. But what I was happy about is that for 10 years, I've been talking about, how safe kids could be if we would just recognize that. But that gets us nowhere. People would always nod along. People would always remember their happy childhood memories of climbing trees and riding their banana bikes and going to the store and knocking on a neighbor's house to see if the kid is home and going out for a play date that wasn't arranged by a parent. But then nothing would change. Everybody agreed something had to be done, but nothing would change. And so Let Grow, rather than working on changing minds, is focused on changing behavior. And the behavior we're thinking about is extremely similar to what happens when parents send their kids off to camp. We are trying to give kids a smidgen of independence through two of our projects that I'll describe in a second. And when they get that, they're less anxious afterwards, and the parents are less anxious. Everybody is allowed to grow, hence Let Grow. So our two school initiatives are really simple, and they're both free. And one is called the Let Grow Project. And this is the one that's going to change America, I hope, really soon. And the project is this: kids get a homework assignment at school that they have to go home and do something on their own without their parents. So the kid goes home with a little piece of paper. Look, Mom, I have to do something on my own without you. Oh, really? Yeah, well, it's school. Oh, okay. What are you going to do? And then there's a list of things. And of course, you don't have to go by the list. You can do anything. But it's like climb a tree, run an errand, walk to the bus stop, make dinner. If you're in a dangerous neighborhood and you really can't walk outside, babysit, visit grandma down the hall, make the breakfast for everybody the next day. So no matter where you live, there's a chance for you to do something independently. And when you do this, you, the kid, have this surge of, the same feeling I think kids get when they go to camp. It's like, hey, look at me. I can do this by myself. I'm not, I'm growing up and I feel terrific and proud and less scared and more competent and more excited because I can go start figuring out new things to do. And when the kid has gone to the store and they come back with the cranberry juice for dinner, I say cranberry juice because I watched this in one family where the kids went and got the cranberry juice for dinner. They were 12 and 10. And they came back and it was like they'd gone to Mars and came back and the parents are ecstatic. And I've seen this so often. The parents are like just thrilled, overjoyed when they see the kids doing this. And I used to think it's because they really thought the kid was going to get kidnapped on the way to the store, and they're so relieved. But years of watching ecstasy on the part of parents when what their kids have done is, to me, seemingly minor, has made me think that really what they are experiencing is existential joy, because you have kids so that they will live when you die. That's literally it, right? And until you see that they can do something on their own, you don't even know if it's going to work. This great experiment with the people you love the most. But when you see that, oh my God, look, my kid really is growing up. They're blossoming. They can handle it. It is this. It's just a remarkable transformation, and you don't go backwards. Just like you don't go backwards when your kids start crawling and then they start walking. You don't go back to crawling now. That was really great. I loved seeing you upright, but it's safer to be on all fours. You watch them and your heart fills. And so the Let Grow project is just a way to make it easy to let go, because everyone's doing it, either everyone in the class or the school or the school district. So you're not the crazy mom. So there are other kids doing it, other parents doing it. Then the kids start comparing notes. I got to go here. Oh, really? My mom won't let me. Well, have her come with me. And we've heard from neighborhoods where like there are kids out on the street again now. They're roller skating, for God's sake. I couldn't believe it. I didn't think anyone had roller skates. We heard from a town where one kid went to the market and was buying something, and the people who worked there were like, where's his mother? This is terrible. The kid had to be under 5th grade because that's the age that the school went up to that was doing the Let Grow project. And so they asked him, what are you doing? He said, I'm doing my Let Grow project. They said, what's that? And he told them. And then other kids started coming there, and now it's just normal for kids to go to the store again like it's 1938 or something like that. So there's like no downside. It doesn't take class time. As I said, it's free. It doesn't cost anything for the parents, and it frees both those generations. And the teachers love it because it starts getting the parents a little less. Sometimes teachers think that parents are a little much, and this makes parents step back a little, almost across the board. So that is one of our big initiatives, and it's so simple. It sounds silly talking about it. It's like, let your kid walk out the door and get you something from the store, or, go to a neighbor and come back in a few hours having played. But it's enormous.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, I think the key to it, and like you said it well, is because we're in a time where people look askance at a child, or like, two siblings walking to a park to play. It's too bad, but being able to say, oh, this is an assignment from school. You almost have to give your kids the words they need in order to defend themselves, doing something that they are perfectly capable of doing, and giving parents the permission to let their children do this. So I really like how it's a community-based effort, because you're right. One family trying to swim upstream and, letting their own kids, that's really difficult to do, because you don't want to be the one who, gets arrested for your child playing more than 100 yards from your front door, or whatever it is that, that your neighbor may perceive as being bad supervision. But if you and all of your friends at school are all letting your kids do this stuff, you're going to start talking about that. The community will start understanding, oh yeah, they're doing those, at school now the kids are assigned to go and walk the dog by themselves, and, these things that really are, they're capable of. So it's genius, Lenore. It's absolutely genius.
I'll take that it's genius, because I didn't come up with it. There was a 6th grade teacher here in New York who started doing it. And then she said, why don't you come look what my kids are doing? And when I did, I was like, wow. The kids would write little essays afterwards, like, now I wasn't afraid anymore, or, the world seemed a lot safer, or I felt better about myself. And I've since interviewed a bunch of kids who have done the Let Grow project. And the result that surprised me the most, now I expect them to feel, sort of proud and sort of grown up and trusted. But a lot of kids have talked about how now they have more friends. And that I found surprising, because it's, we don't say go outside and make a friend. And it's not that they do that. It's that they now feel more confident just talking to people, and even, risking rejection at the lunch table, or just talking to somebody in the hall. I feel like kids have been so stunted in a way, being, if you're always around somebody who's saying, let me handle that for you. We say always helping kids isn't always helping them. And so given they had to go into a store and talk to a stranger. They really, they defined it as that, a store full of strangers. Well, it's a store full of people. And I guess they're strangers, but they're just people. They're not, criminals. And they just felt so much better about themselves and better about the world, that they that they were making more friends. That was a bonus that I didn't expect.
Well, that's awesome, because that is what is happening, is what exactly stunting. I always think people think, oh, well, my child's not ready for such and such. But the thing is that the way you get ready for things is practicing. And if we don't let them practice, then how are they ever going to feel competent and confident and capable? So I love that. I'm always encouraging parents to just have kids do little things like make dinner or talk, do handle the checkout at the store. If you're not comfortable sending them on your own yet, well, let your child do the talking and handing them the card and running it through the thing or putting in your phone number for your, store thing, and just let them try it in front of you until you feel confident. I used to, like, before my kids were, when they were getting their permits or going to start learning how to drive, I was like, okay, you get the gas, and I'd hand them my card and let them get out and do the gas and stuff. And of course they love that when they're like, when they're young, getting to do those kind of adult seeming tasks is really fun. When you're 20, it doesn't feel that fun, not knowing how to get gas,
Yeah.
So that's terrific.
All right. So I want to say two things. One is that it's not just fun to do something for your parents. It is also telling you that your parents trust you, believe in you, and need you. And those things feel so great. It's great to know that your parents don't think you're so endangered or incompetent or, unready, such a baby, that you can't do things on your own. So it's great when they do trust you. And then one girl who's, I had kids write about their favorite Electro project. And one girl said that her favorite project, she was a seventh grader, was her parents had to go early to some appointment one day. So she was left at home to get her 6-year-old sister ready. So she's 12, sister's 6. And she said she made her breakfast, she packed her backpack, and she took her outside and put her on the bus. And the little girl's, blowing kisses to the 12-year-old sister. And she was crying when she talked to me. She said, because I finally felt I was important to someone. And why would we take that away from our kids?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I've thought for a long time that one of the reasons so many adolescents feel so bad is because they feel unneeded. When we are doing everything for them and not letting them start doing for themselves or helping others, like that story. I mean, when you don't feel needed or valued or necessary to a household or to a school or community, that's a terrible feeling. And I think now that adolescence is kind of prolonged, and people keep delaying, oh, well, no, you can't really do that until you're older. Like, we were babysitting. I mean, I don't know how old you, but when I was 11, I tell people a story. I babysat down the street it was a 2-year-old and a 2-month-old.
Wow.
Okay. So I walked down the street, and it was like an afternoon, like 2 or 3 hour thing. And I remember even at the time going, wow, oh my gosh. And I have to hold the baby's head and entertain the 2-year-old. And it was challenging, but also like very memorable. Like, hey, I did it. They gave me the instructions. And now people get babysitters for their 11-year-old in the afternoon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's the craziness. Okay. So Lenore, tell about, in our last minutes together, what are your other projects besides the school initiative?
So our other thing that we suggest schools do is called the Electro Play Club. And that is just keep your school open before or after school for free play. Yes, there's a nurse there in case anything goes terribly wrong, but nobody is organizing the games. Nobody's solving the spats. Have a bunch of kids stay after school, charge $5, whatever you have to do. But then they're mixed age kids playing together. They're off their devices. They're figuring out what to do. They're solving their arguments. All the stuff that we're trying to give kids now through social emotional learning lessons, you learn when you're with a bunch of kids and no, they don't want to play that. Okay, so I better compromise. Was the ball in or out? We better decide. This is boring. Okay, let's vote on what we're going to do instead. The little kids love trying to hold themselves together because they're around the big kids and they don't want to look like babies. And the big kids, who everybody's worried are going to be horrible bullies, actually end up more empathic. We've interviewed kids, like, what do you like about Play Club? We asked the 5th graders at a K-5 school, and we asked them separately. So it wasn't like they were just infecting each other with their answers. And it was like, I liked when I found a little kid who wasn't doing anything and I chased her, or I liked teaching the little kids a new game, because these are kids who haven't had a chance to experience empathy because they're just with kids exactly their own age and they're just doing what they have to do. But when you rise to the occasion on the playground and there are little kids there and you're the grown up because you're a 5th grader or a 4th grader, it is a great feeling. It's not just the leadership, it is the kindness that you get into yourself and you realize, like, this is fun. I mean, they didn't even realize what they were enjoying was empathy. So I think that's cool. And then we were talking earlier for a minute about you don't want to be the parent who gets arrested for letting your kids play outside. Frankly, it doesn't happen often, but it has a chilling effect. The fact that any parents have ever been investigated for, letting their kids play outside or walk to school. And so we're trying to pass, we used to call them free range parenting laws. Now they're called let grow parenting laws or reasonable independence for children laws in different states. And right now we have a bill that's been introduced in Colorado and one in South Carolina. And we had one passed in Utah, and we're hoping that all the states will pass a law that says it's not neglect to take your eyes off your kids. Neglect is blatant disregard for a child's safety and well-being, but it's not, letting the kid walk to school or come home with a latchkey or play outside.
That's wonderful. So you're really attacking this issue from all angles with Let Grow.
We think we are. I mean, if your listeners have another thing that we haven't thought of, they should please drop me a note, because as I said, all these ideas come from someplace else. I just amalgamate them. So you can always, write to us info@letgrow.org. We'll see what you have to say, and we'd love to be in touch.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on today, Lenore. I'm just inspired by your work, your ongoing efforts, and how you kind of evolve your work to the needs of parents. And I'm so excited to just spread the word about Let Grow and also all of your other upcoming speaking and opportunities for people to get to know you better.
Well, that's great. And I have to say, I think camp is, one of the last bastions of childhood freedom. And I think kids who are lucky enough to have it, whether it's day camp or overnight camp, boy, they should take advantage, and parents should take advantage too. Because as you said, the parents feel a lot more relaxed when they finally get to take their eyes off their kids for summer. Summer should be a time of freedom.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to end with that, because that is gold right there.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with Lenore. I hope you agree with me that she is certainly not America's worst mom, and in fact has much wisdom to share with all of us. I encourage you to check out her book, Free Range Kids, as well as the amazing free resources available at letgrow.org. Whether you're a camp professional, an educator, or a parent, you'll find some amazing, simple ideas there for helping your kids grow. As always, you can find notes, links, and other resources related to today's conversation by visiting my website at sunshine-parenting.com. While you're there, be sure to sign up for my email list so that you don't miss out on any of the great resources I have available for raising thriving kids. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd really appreciate you sharing it with a friend. Please take a moment to give Sunshine Parenting a rating or review on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. Let's end with a quote from my book, Happy Campers. Positive relationships are what make a happy life. So let's help our kids build the social skills they need now to have strong friendships and positive relationships throughout their lives. I'm Audrey Monkey. Thank you for joining me for the Sunshine Parenting Podcast. Join me again next week.